Unity in Pursuit of Vision, Part 2. So, funny story. I don't know if you've noticed this, those of you who are married, but it's amazing the difference that a man is before he's married and then 6 months after the marriage. So, like before I was married to Andrea, I was Superman. Okay? And what I mean by that is we would be going on a youth trip or something. We'd have all this luggage. 6 pieces of luggage sit on the ground, and I could walk by, and I was Superman, and I could pick up all 6 of those pieces of luggage and carry on because I was strong, I was Superman, right? That was before the marriage. 6 months after the marriage, we're on that same youth trip. We got 6 pieces of luggage. I walk by, and I pick up one, and I keep going and say, "Are you coming or what?" Before the marriage, I was Aquaman. So I could take Andrea on a date, and it would be torrential downpour, raining outside, and I could get Andrea from the car into the restaurant in the middle of a torrential downpour without a single drop of water hitting her beautiful, well-manicured body, because I was Aquaman, and I could do that. That was before the marriage. 6 months after the marriage, we go on that same date, and I get out of the car, and I bolt for the door, run to the door, I fog up the window, and I'm like, man, I wonder if she's going to make it. Have you seen the difference? Can we acknowledge that there's a difference before you get married and after you get married? There's this difference. And I don't know about you, but as I go through life, I want to be about making a difference in this world. I want to make an impact. I want to change the world. I do. Deep down, I want to make a difference. And when I'm dead and gone, and I'm no longer on this earth, I want people to be able to say, man, that guy made a difference in the world. He accomplished some things. And I want there to be a legacy where even years and years after I'm gone from this earth, there will be this ripple effect that just continues to happen because I was a part of this world. And through Jesus working through me, I was able to leave a legacy and things that continue to go on even after I'm gone. Like, does anyone else want to make a difference in the world?
Yes.
You want to make an impact? Well, guess what? We named our church Impact for a reason, because we want this church to make a difference, and we want this church to have a ripple effect out into the community. And even after, I'm long gone from this church because I've passed on or whatever, this church is still going to be making an impact years and years and centuries, maybe even later, if Jesus hasn't come back by then. We want to be about making a difference. Our church mission is to search for the lost, develop disciples, and serve with love. And so those 3 things actually put 4 of our core values together. We simplified 4 down into 3. We combined the middle 2 into develop disciples. But search for the lost, develop disciples, and serve with love. And if we believe if we do these things, that we will make a difference in our community and impact even to the world, like beyond this community. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be in Luke chapter 15. Luke chapter 15. And the first one is search for the lost. Search for the lost. Now, the Bible uses a fancy, long Bible word for that called evangelism. But we're going to just call it search for the lost. Evangelism just means to proclaim the good news to people who haven't heard the good news of Jesus yet. But we want to be about searching for the lost. Luke chapter 15 says tax collectors, and by the way, I'm reading out of the New Living Translation because I really like the way they put certain things that we're going to be reading today, New Living Translation. So if you're using your Bible app and you want to switch over to that, so you're in the same translation, you can do that. But it says, verse 1, tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to Jesus to listen to him teaching. This made the Pharisees and teachers of the religious law complain that he was associating with such despicable people, even eating with them. Oh, God forbid that you would eat with sinners. So Jesus used this illustration. I love how Jesus would use a story to show why he was doing what he was doing. If you had 100 sheep and one of them strayed away and was lost in the wilderness, wouldn't you leave the 99 others to go and search for the lost one until you found it, and then you would joyfully carry it home on your shoulders. When you arrived, you would call together your friends and neighbors to rejoice with you because your lost sheep was found. And all the people hearing this story is like, yeah, you're right. That is what I would do. Like, I would go look for my sheep, and I would bring it back joyfully, and I would call together my neighbors and friends and celebrate with them. In the same way, heaven will be happier over one lost sinner who returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. And I think most people could relate to that in that time. And then he tells about a story of a lady who lost a coin, and she searched the house and found it. So I want you to think this morning about what's the most precious thing to you in this world. Like, what's one of the most valuable things that you have that you would really miss if you lost that thing? So if you had $100 and you lost it somewhere in your house, would you not turn that house upside down until you found it? Like, you're looking through the couch, the cushions, and the crevices and cracks. You're searching every nook and cranny of your house until you find that $100, correct? Like, whatever a nook and a cranny is, I don't know. Like, you would search every nook and cranny until you found that $100. Why? Because that's a lot of money to most of us. Like, it's valuable, and we would look hard until we found it. Some of you might have thought when I asked that question, my children are one of the most valuable things to me in this world. Okay, imagine one of your children was lost. Would you not search as hard as you could until you found that child? Until they were found? Of course you would. And I was thinking about the movie Home Alone. It was number 2, Lost in New York. And remember, he was lost for a second time, which, what is the deal with those parents? How do you leave your kid not once but twice, right? Hollywood. Anyway, the mom is walking through the streets of New York, and she's got these pictures of her son, and she's like, have you seen my son? Have you seen my son? Have you seen my son? And finally she sees this police officer. They're sitting in their car, and she goes, have you seen my son? And the police officer goes, ma'am, have you filed a police report already? And she goes, yeah. And he goes, then don't worry about it. We've got it. We'll find your son for you. And she goes, sir, do you have children of your own? He goes, yes, ma'am. She goes, what would you be doing if one of them was missing? And he goes, I'd be looking like you. I'd be looking everywhere. He's like, all right, get in the car. Here, I'll take you to where you need to go. Right? Like, of course you would look as hard as you could, and you would be handing out flyers, and you would be doing whatever you could until you found that lost person. Well, here's the thing. To God, every person on this earth is like a lost child to him. And he wants every single one of them to come back to him. And he's going to search. He is that good shepherd. Jesus was that good shepherd who came down to earth and searched for the lost. And went after every single one, and wants to find them all. Right? And we need to actively seek. I love the word search for the lost. We picked that word because it's an active verb. Search for the lost. Like, we're going out and we're actively seeking and we're searching. And I like that word. I like that phrase. And so the thing about it is we can't expect people to just come to us. Like, we can't expect people who are far from God to just show up in church one day and be like, hey, I'm looking for Jesus. I mean, yes, it happens, but I think that's a rare thing. Nowadays, we're going to have to go to them. We can't expect them to just show up on our church doorstep. We're going to have to go to them. And so I'm excited about some things that we're doing. We're doing neighborhood cookouts. We're doing block parties in our neighborhood. We're going to do a neighborhood VBS, which I'm really excited about. Because instead of expecting people to come to a church building and go to VBS, we're going to take VBS to the neighborhood, which I think is cool. It's going to be an experiment, but we've got to try different things. We've got to be willing to experiment and go to where people are instead of expecting them to come to us. One thing that me and Andrea have done for a couple of years now is we find these people on Facebook groups that are in need, and they post that they need certain things like crutches or diapers or groceries or whatever. And we see those people and we reach out to them, private message them, and say, hey, our family would like to help you out with that. And we take them, and one time we took a bunch of baby stuff to this girl, and she needed a crib. We took a whole crib to her and all this stuff. And we gave her a Bible. And we said, if you want, we are willing to do these Bible studies with people. They're 4 weeks long, and so on and so forth. Well, she wasn't ready right then, but she accepted the Bible, and she was thankful. She called me like a few months later, was like, hey, you know that Bible study you offered? I'm ready for it now. And so this works, like reaching out to people, showing the love of Jesus, going to where they are, showing the love, and then offering, if you're ever curious about God, we're there. Like, this stuff works, and we're already teaching others how to do that same thing, of how to find those people in need. And so here's the thing, people are lost. And what the Bible means when it says people are lost is they've lost their way. They've lost their bearings. They don't have direction or purpose in life. And so there's a statement in Matthew 9:36 where it says that Jesus saw the crowds and he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Some of you know the story. He had compassion on them. He saw them and he felt bad for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. In other words, they didn't have someone to lead them. They were without direction. They didn't know where they were going in life. And he had compassion on them. Another way that the Bible uses the term lost is that people, if they haven't become a follower of Jesus, they're not right with God right now. There's this separation from God in this life, and if they don't take care of that before they pass on, then they're going to be separated from God for eternity in hell. And we don't want that for them. And so we need to have compassion on these people that are in that situation. And so I think we need to pray, and we just need to pray that God would increase our compassion. God, increase our compassion for those who are lost and dying and going to hell. God, increase our compassion for those who have no hope. Increase our compassion for those who are broken and hurting and lonely and in need. And let that compassion turn into action. Biblical compassion is not just feeling sorry for someone, but it's feeling sorry for them and then doing something about it. So the story of the Good Samaritan, it says he saw the man who was beaten up and left for dead. He had compassion on the man, and then he put him on his donkey and he took him to an inn to care for his wounds. Right? That compassion led to action. Biblical compassion always leads to doing something about it. And guys, when you start reaching people, you see their lives changed. It's an awesome, awesome thing. And we have story after story of people we've reached out to. Their lives were changed, and it was this domino effect of them telling their friends. And it's exciting when you search for the lost and you help give people purpose. And they find their purpose in life, God's purpose that he made them for. And so my question this morning is, can you get behind that vision? Can you get behind the vision of our church, reaching and changing lives? That's the question this morning. So number 2, we talked about develop disciples. Search for the lost, and then develop disciples. And this is the one where we combine 2 into 1. Develop disciples breaks down into, first of all, equipping people to do things for themselves. Equipping people to do things for themselves. So I want you to think about the proudest moment you've ever had of one of your children. Okay? When were you proud of one of your kids? I think back to when my oldest son, Eric, learned how to tie his shoes for the first time. I think he was 4 years old. And you know what we did as parents? We took a picture of his tied shoe. Because we were, proud of the fact that he learned to do that for himself. When Eliana was about a year and a half old, she started dressing herself. And she would put 3 different pairs of pants on and 3 different shirts on that didn't match at all. And we would go, Eliana, those don't match. And we would try to get her to change and put on something different. And she would stand there and go, I do it myself. That's what she said, I do it myself. And we're proud when kids learn to do things for themselves, aren't we? Especially when our kids get a job and they start making their own money. And we're like, good, now you can stop asking me for money. Go buy it yourself. Get off my back. Get out of my wallet. Right? But did you think of the moments that you were proudest of your kids? I'll bet you the thing they had in common was they learned how to do something for themselves. And that's what made you proud. Like, they matured, they grew up, and they could do it for themselves. Did you know the job of a pastor is not to do all the ministry myself? It's actually to teach everybody else how to do the works of ministry. Ephesians chapter 4, and in verse 11. So we have Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians. Ephesians chapter 4 explains that God left certain categories of people for the church, and it was for a specific reason. And we're going to see that one of those reasons he left pastors is for the pastor to train others how to do ministry for themselves. So 4 verse 11 in Ephesians, he is the one, talking about Jesus, he is the one who gave these gifts to the church. The apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, and the pastors and teachers. Now listen to this. Their responsibility is to what? Equip God's people to do his work and build up the church, the body of Christ. Everybody catch that? It's our responsibility to equip you, to give you the equipment to do things for yourselves, until we come to such unity in our faith and knowledge of God's Son that we will be mature and full grown in the Lord, measuring up to the full stature of Christ. Then we will no longer be what? Infants. So you see this progression that we're not supposed to stay babies, spiritually speaking. We're supposed to grow up and mature. And one of the ways that you know you've matured is when you learn how to do something, what? For yourself. And so my job is not to spoon feed you the Bible for the rest of your lives. It's to teach you how to read the Bible for yourself. And we have a program where we do that. It's called D groups, discipleship groups. You're going to use a book that teaches you this certain method. It's called the HEAR method. Highlight, explain, apply, and respond. HEAR. And so every scripture that you read, you're highlighting, and then you do an explanation, and then how do I apply this to my life, and then how am I going to respond to it? But you practice that, and you learn this method of how to study the Bible for yourself. We're going to teach you that through our D groups. I can't wait till we get to the life groups. We're going to have a special series of life groups where we teach you how to read and interpret certain types of literary in the Bible for yourself. So how to understand poetry, the poetry sections of the Bible, how to understand the letters, how to understand the narrative sections, the story sections of the Bible. One of the things we teach people in our life groups is how to pray for yourself. So one of the things we do is it's called a prayer circle. And some of you remember this from back in the day where you would circle up and join hands. And we would go around in a circle, and if you don't want to pray, what do? You squeeze the hand of the person next to you, and that lets them know you're passing on praying for that, in the circle. And I've done this. I've seen where people grow from passing every week until I'll encourage them, you can just say something simple like, God, thank you for my family. And that's your prayer. And they'll build up, and they'll start saying longer and longer prayers, and they get more and more confident. And it's really cool to see that happen with people. So we do that to teach people how to pray for yourself, how to do daily devotion time, how to share your testimony. We have testimony sharing tools that we can teach you in our church. So the question is, can you get on board with that kind of vision where we're going to equip people to do things for themselves? And people are going to be turned loose, and they're going to go out and do great things because we taught them how. I think that's a cool thing. The other thing we combined with Develop Disciples is leadership development. I think it's really interesting. A lot of people will point to the Bible and say, I don't see the term leadership development in the Bible. Where is that? Well, there might not be the phrase leadership development in the Bible, but I definitely think the concept is in there. So think about this. Have you ever thought about this? Jesus only spent 3.5 years doing his earthly ministry. Just 3.5 years. And he spent that 3.5 years developing and developing leaders and pouring into these 12 disciples, teaching them to do what he did, right? And then after 3.5 years, he left. He left after 3 years and said, all right, now, you guys do it. You guys do it. Jesus was all about leadership development. That's how he spent his earthly ministry. And for this point, I wanted to bring up a special guest. Her name is Angel. And she has a really cool story. I've seen her just grow.
I'm loud, Jeremy. I don't need that. I'm loud.
Okay. If they can't hear you in the video, when I play back the recording, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to come after you and say, no, that's okay. All right, you're loud. Cool. All right, so Angel, tell me, me and Andrea met you a couple years ago, a little longer than that. And can you just describe real briefly, like, where you were at spiritually when we first met you? Like, what was your church attendance like? What was your daily devotion time with God like? You know, that kind of thing.
2 years ago, I was attending ECC. I thought I was a Christian because I had been baptized, and I was going to church. Stuff kind of fell off. I stopped going to church. I became lost, very lost. I met Jeremy, and Jeremy discipled me, and we did a Bible study, and I learned that I was nowhere near what a Christian should be. And that time, I had a very different outlook on what Christians were and how they acted, and I thought as long as you loved Jesus and you accepted him, you were a Christian. Well, that's not true. There's much, much more to the job than just loving him.
Yeah, amen. So what happened? Because there was definitely a shift where, like, you just shifted gears and like took off and changed. So what was the thing that happened that changed for you?
I think it was just the severity of everything I was going through. I just felt like that there was nothing else that could possibly make it better but God. I heard Jeremy's first service at the church that I went to, and it just touched me. And from then on, I was like, I have to fix this. I can't live my life like this. It can't be like this. This is not what it's supposed to be. So I took necessary steps to do it.
Yeah. I remember there were some Sundays where you were hit and miss, and sometimes more miss than hit. Yeah. And I would reach out to you and be like, Angel, where are you at? Where are you at, girl? Come on. And you started coming a lot more regularly, and it just seemed like you shifted gears and you were just like all in.
Yep.
And so then you started, like, I noticed, what were some of the changes that you saw for yourself, that what changed in your everyday life that you started doing that you weren't doing before?
Well, I started praying more, and I was reading the Bible, and we were working on, what we were doing, and I just saw turmoil in my life. And every aspect of my life had some sort of turmoil, and I just had to get out of it. I had to climb out of it. And he was the only thing that was helping me climb out of that hole. So
God was?
Yeah.
Jesus, yeah. And I noticed one thing you started doing was you started sharing the good news, like, all the time. So what sparked that? Like,
I think it was just God. He just put it in me that you know what a Christian is about, you know what you're supposed to be doing, so get out there and do it. Life ain't easy, make your time here worth it.
Right.
And something that's memorable, and help other people find Jesus, because I finally realized how serious it was to have Jesus in your life, and how much it could change in a blink of an eye if you just trusted him with everything in you.
Yeah. Yeah, so you started sharing with your friends, and we started doing some Bible studies with them, right? And you would come along, and I remember the time when, so you had sat in on like 2 or 3 Bible studies, and one day you just called me and you're like, hey, I need your Bible study, right? Tell us about that.
Well, I was nervous, but then I gained the reality of I'm never alone in this. Regardless if Jeremy's with me, God is with me. And if I'm doing this from my heart, God will be with me. He'll get me through it. He'll make sure that I have the right words to say to teach these people how important it is to love Jesus and to be a part of his kingdom.
Yeah. So I was honestly shocked. I was like, well, you've only sat in on 2 of these with me, but you say, I was like, okay, you say you're ready? She's like, yeah, I got this. I'm good. And you did that Bible study with your friend all by yourself, right? And led her to the Lord all by yourself,
Yeah.
which is awesome. It's awesome. And you brought how many of your friends to the Lord?
Well,
Is it 2, 3, 4? It's like
Kelly, sort of, kinda.
It's like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah,
3 or 4 of your
Kristen
friends.
and my husband.
Yeah. So I'm just proud of you, and I wish everyone would get on fire like you are, and just because I see your Facebook posts and you're just like, I'm just so full of my Father and He's so good, and it's awesome. So
Times are hard, but it's a little easier with Jesus.
Amen.
And I don't know, it's just like he gave me another purpose. Before Jesus, I thought my purpose was solely to be a mom. I love my babies. My babies are my everything. There was nothing in the world better than my babies. And I really, really thought my purpose on this world was to be their mom. That is not my purpose. That might be one of my purposes, but my main purpose is to bring whoever possible to Jesus. That's why we're here.
Amen. All right. Thank you, Angel. So, one of the reasons I wanted to bring her up is because of the Bible studies that, like I said, I took her along on a couple of those, and then she just took and ran with it, and that was the goal all along, is that people would learn how to do it for themselves and then take off and run with it. And that was a concept that I got in college, but I didn't put into practice right away. So we had this professor, his name was Dr. Flavel Yakeley, and he's passed on, God rest his soul now, but Dr. Yakeley, so we had this very talented artist who was a classmate of mine. He was very good at drawing. And one day he did this sketch on the whiteboard of Dr. Yakeley, his face. And this was during the time when Flavel Flav, the rapper, was really popular. And remember how he used to wear this necklace with this big clock on it? And so my friend drew this picture of Dr. Flavel Yakeley and called him Dr. Flavel Flav, and drew his face with this big necklace, and it was this spinning image of Dr. Yakeley. And we all thought it was awesome and funny. And then Dr. Yakeley walked in, and we were like, uh-oh, what's he going to think about this? Is he going to be mad? He looked at it, he was like, that's pretty good. And then we moved on. But Dr. Yakeley taught us back in 2005, or whenever it was I had his class, he said, always take someone with you. Whenever you go to do ministry, he was talking to us who were going to be pastors. He said, always take someone with you. Don't ever go alone. If you do a Bible study, take somebody with you and show them how to do the Bible study. Guys, I didn't get that for 9 years of ministry. I didn't get that. It didn't click in my head until finally God brought that back to me. Always go 2 of you. And I started doing that, and we trained like 5 different people in the last 2 years how to do that Bible study, Angel being one of them. And I loved it. Like her leading her friend all on her own, that's where it's at. That's what it's all about. And so the question is, can you get behind that kind of vision where we're going to be raising up others to do things? So we're going to be raising up teenagers and giving them opportunities to learn and grow and speak and serve in different ways. And I can't wait to see some of them go off to Bible college and to be in full-time ministry. We're going to raise people up, and we're going to see them be sent out to be missionaries overseas. That's going to happen. Like, people are going to be raised up because we develop them, and they're going to go out and serve. And the ultimate goal is that we raise up so many people that every person that has a major ministry area is training other people and duplicating themselves. So I need to train other people how to preach sermons. Whoever's leading worship trains other people how to lead worship. Whoever's over kids teaches someone else how to do the kids. And we raise up so many other people. We have this excess amount of people that can do on any given day. And then we plant a church and we send a team of people who know how to do the main things. And we don't even miss them because we have so many people trained up to do. Can you get behind that kind of vision? Because that's our vision for our church, for impact. And then the last one is be the church by serving with love. And so a lot of people are in this mindset of go to church. They think being a Christian just means you go to church. And that is part of it, but that's not where it ends. It's actually being the church. The church is not a building. The church is the people. And the church is the church when they get out and they serve people in need. So these guys named the Pharisees, they were the religious leaders of Jesus' day. And they totally had things backwards. Everything they did was for a show. They would pray and say these long prayers in front of people so people would look at them and be like, oh, they're so religious. Look at them. They say these long prayers. And Jesus rebuked them often, all the time, and even called them hypocrites. And he was like, these people honor me with their lips. They say all the right things, but their hearts are far from me. And the biggest problem that the Pharisees had is they didn't really care about people in need. That was one of the things Jesus addressed with them over and over and over again, is you seem religious, but you don't care. These spices, your dill, your whatever other spices, cumin and something else. He says you give 1/10 of all your spices, you tithe to the church. But he said then you neglect the weightier measures of the law, like justice, mercy or compassion, and faithfulness. If you can give all this money to the church, you can say these long prayers, but if you don't care about people and have compassion on people who are in need, then your heart isn't in the right place. Because God's heart is He cares about those people. And we need to care about those people as well. Right? And so that's why He told the story of the Good Samaritan. How many of you heard the term Good Samaritan? Right? It was because of these leaders. One of them came to Him and said, Jesus, what's the most important law of all of them? And he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. But then he said, and there's a second one. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then the guy asked, well, who is my neighbor? And so Jesus told a story. He answers all questions with these stories. He goes, well, there was this man who got beaten up, robbed, and left for dead. And then he talks about, uses the Pharisees in the story. He calls them a different name, but he says a priest came by and walked on the other side of the road and didn't help the person. A Levite came by. Again, the Pharisees would have been offended, like he's talking about us. He walks by on the other side and doesn't help the person. Lo and behold, this Samaritan, who was like a despised person back in that day, for reasons we don't have time to go into this morning, but they were despised. Jesus makes him the hero of the story because he actually stopped, had compassion on the person, and put him on his donkey and took him to an inn and bandaged his wounds and did something about it. Right? And so Jesus all the time is like, you seem religious, but by not helping people in need, your heart isn't in the right place. Your heart is not in tune with the Father's heart. Because God the Father cares about those people and wants us to be His hands and feet. And so here's our vision for Impact Church. Andy Stanley asked the question one time. He said, if your church magically just disappeared from the community, like just zap, poof, and disappeared, would your community even notice? Which is a really good question. Like, would they even care? Or would they just keep driving right by it and not even notice? And our goal at Impact is that answer would be a resounding yes, they would notice. And they would miss us terribly because we are such a key part of the community and helping people. They would miss us terribly. My brother was telling me a story where they went to a church where they would take a week out of the year to serve different serving projects in the community. One of them was to do the landscaping at this ice cream shop we were eating at. They came in and did the landscaping because the owner had cancer and wasn't able to tend to the landscaping. So they came in and tended to it for that week. I think they went beyond that. But they had all these projects going on all over the city. And get this, other churches started coming to my brother's church where he was going, handing them a check and saying, we hear about what you're doing in the community. Here's some money. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. When other churches are noticing what your church is doing and giving you money to keep doing it, you're doing something right. And that's our vision for Impact, is that we would be doing all these things in the community that people would take notice, and not to bring glory and fame to ourselves, but to point people to the God who saved us and who loves us, and He inspires us to love others, to point people to God. And so can you get behind that kind of vision of being the church? Not just going to church, but going out and being the church wherever we go and making an impact and making a difference in people's lives. Can you get behind that kind of vision? I hope the answer is yes. And so we've got a situation going on right now with this coronavirus, right? And I really want us to dig deep and say, how is God wanting us to be the church during this time? And it's going to take some outside of the box kind of thinking. And I don't know this for sure. I haven't talked to the members of the steering committee yet, but who knows? We got to think outside the box. Maybe next week we don't meet as a church and go to church, but we go out and be the church and give out some supplies to people in need or something. I don't know. But we need to care about people. You know, God, we don't want to be those people that they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Yeah, you guys go to church and you say these things, you sing these songs, but you're not helping people in need. We don't want to be those people, right? We want to be the people that are helping those in need. But you put these together, search for the lost, develop disciples, and serve with love and be the church. If you can get behind that kind of vision, then we ask you, even if you've been going here for a while, would you be willing to recommit to that and say, yes, I will be part of this church, and I want to make a difference, and I want to make that impact, and I want to leave that legacy, that ripple effect that keeps going even after we're long gone. Do you want to be a part of a church like that? If so, recommit yourselves to that. If you're not committed yet, we ask if you would commit yourselves today, and if you would partner with us and be a part of what we are doing and what we're going to do going into the future.